I would like to welcome back to the show Dr. O. She's a background in integrative medicine and also conventional medicine. And today we're talking about diet and eating habits during the holidays. And she's got some great pointers. And we're really going to break down good carbs and bad carbs. Dr. O, I love talking to you because I learn so much. And this time of year, I feel like a lot of people kind of binge eat a little bit and they eat a lot of carbs. So what can we do to make sure that we're really just eating properly?
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for having me again. Today, I'd like to talk about the carbohydrate and good sugar or bad sugar and content of the nutritious foods and usually fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. But people all just like talking about sugar and sugar and sugar. In complex carbs, and needs to be defined. And sometimes I see in my daily practice, parents are giving kids as paleo bars. Kids need carbs for energy. But when we give them carbs, we need to focus on the complex carbs. If a carbohydrate has large amount of fiber in it, we decrease the fiber from the total carbohydrate, which gives us the sugar content of the food. If a food has 30-gram carb and 15-gram fiber, and then our sugar content is pretty much the perfect match. 15 difference is the sugar content of that meal, versus when we're having a big soft drink with 60-gram sugar in it, there's no fiber, and we are getting straight 60-gram sugar carbohydrate from that drink. So the simple analogy is, if you are eating Rice Krispie treats, it just puts in your mouth, it melts, and you immediately get the sugar rush, versus you're eating brown rice. It's a complex carb with the fiber. That's one is processed and refined and simple carb. The other one is a complex carb with fiber. That's what we need to focus on.
So for families out there, if they're looking to find just a better balance with what you're talking about, really pay attention to that fiber content, correct? That number is key. Even in things like cereal, it might have a lot of sugar in it, but as long as the fiber count's pretty high, it's relatively healthy, correct?
That is correct. And when we purchase a cereal, it's important for parents to read the total carbohydrate, and it says maybe 25 gram, but the 0-gram fiber in that, it makes it a pure sugar. But when we have, let's say, 25-gram carb cereal, but has a 13-gram fiber in it, and the math is less than 10 gram of sugar. So that's very important for parents to attend when they purchase cereal for their children. Same differences between apple pie versus apple. When we have a fiber in apple, maybe we're eating significantly sweet fruit, but then fiber content decreases the glycemic index of that sugar.
And then another really tip that you wanted to talk about has to do with spices, to incorporate spices into food. So how exactly does that work, and what do you recommend?
That's actually a very good topic for the holidays, because we have now, we're using cinnamon, nutmeg in our cookings. And there is a great story about Pima Indians. And Pima Indians lived in South America, and then they had prickly pear and tons of cinnamon, local cinnamon, in their desserts and cooking, and they never developed adult onset type 2 diabetes. When they came to the United States, and then there is a striking evidence that Pima Indians developed type 2 diabetes in standard American diet. So then they looked, and they had their cinnamon, which has high chromium, and then decreased the glycemic index of the food, and all of a sudden outcome of their type 2 diabetes was significantly reduced when they were in their own backyard and eating their ancestral foods. So cinnamon, chromium, and flavonoids, and then flavonoids, pretty much general term for all the spices, decreases the glycemic index. They are very high in antioxidants. So incorporating a lot of cooking with spices in our diet also decreases their oxidative stress for our cells. Thyme is another huge one, and Thanksgiving is coming. Thyme has a lot of antiviral, antibacterial properties. And I use Arctic thyme from Iceland in my cooking. I even put in my sweet potato before I bake it. Thyme is a great ingredient for decreasing inflammation when we cook with.
Those are some great tips. And I like the idea is that we're not getting rid of flavor altogether. We still have it. You just have to choose the right things. Now, my last question for you is a very general question. Going into the holidays, what can we do to make sure that we don't gain that extra 5 pounds between now and the new year? Because a lot of people do that. What do you recommend?
I recommend and staying with the least amount of processed foods. For example, instead of just buying it from the grocery store, highly processed, and then glycemic index was high because it could contain high fructose corn syrup, could contain trans fats to keep it fresh. So then by the time you consume it, it's still good because you bought it 3 days ago. Those are the foods will give you high oxidative stress and will be high in sugar and high fructose corn syrup and trans fats. I would recommend preparing them at home. And I had sweet potato here, and I added my flavonoids, spices, nutmeg, and cinnamon with the spoonful of coconut oil. And I wrapped it and I baked it. And in the end of cooking, I add sometimes rolled oats. On top of it, I add walnuts sometimes. And I want to get really fancy. I put the coconut whip and I eat sweet potatoes like a dessert. And this is like high carb, high fiber, less sugar, and my taste buds are on holiday.
Well, Dr. O, thank you so much for all your time and your information. We appreciate it. If people want to learn more about you and your medical practice, how can they do that?
They can go to Dr.O.jax.com or Dr.O.care.com is we're developing that website, or obtainhealth.com, or they can just go to Dr.Ozdemir.com. So there are so many avenues that we're just trying to connect with community to provide good information and bring in integrated medicine to the First Coast.
Well, thanks again and happy holidays.
Thank you so much. Happy holidays.